Let's come back. I was going to say come to London. The question emanates from London, but roughly 3 million people are trapped in property that has Grenfell cladding or Grenfell-style cladding. And when I say trapped, either it means their properties are effectively worthless, they can't sell them on, because obviously it's impossible to mortgage these properties at this time. In some instances, the building companies or that implemented the cladding are just being absolutely and totally unhelpful. And in other instances, of course, these are local authority or housing association owned, and people are going to bed each night not knowing if effectively they're in a fire trap. So the one end you're living in a fire trap, the other one you've got a house that you've put your life savings into and it's worth nothing. Well, please say one MP decided to raise this yesterday in Prime Minister's Questions. I speak of Labour MP Florence Ashalomi, who's the Vauxhall, for Vauxhall, her constituency. And she asked this of Boris Johnson.
Unsafe cladding is leaving hundreds of leaseholders across Vauxhall unable to sell or remortgage their properties. The EWS1 forms are not being used as intended and leaving my constituents trapped between risk-adverse lenders and irresponsible building owners. They have been waiting 3 years already. So can the Prime Minister tell me what steps he's taking now to resolve this really dangerous situation?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable because I am aware of this problem of people facing real disadvantaged leaseholders and others because of the of unsafe cladding still on their buildings. I think it is disgraceful, and both ACM and HPL cladding, in my view, should come off as fast as possible when we are investing massively to achieve that as fast as we can. But I sincerely appreciate the problem that she raises.
All right, we'll hear from the MP in a moment. A lot of initials flying around. The MP, EWS is an external wall survey 1, which is what Florence Ashalomi talked about, joins me now. Thanks for coming on the show, and indeed thank you on behalf of so many of my listeners who are trapped in these sorts of houses and apartments and flats up and down the land. What did you make of the response you got, though? Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nick, and thank you to the work that LBC have been doing covering this really important issue.
Oh, thank you.
I think for me, the problem is the fact that 3 years after Grenfell, Nick, 3 years after Grenfell, there are over 300 buildings across the country with unsafe cladding. So you highlighted that people are going to bed every night not knowing if they will wake up the next morning.
Yes.
That is totally unacceptable.
It is. What do you think we need to see from the government? And do you sense that they were trying to do something before the COVID pandemic?
I think it's about giving credit where credit's due. The government did put forward the Building Safety Fund, but that pot of money is just not enough. It will not even scratch the surface of this situation we're facing. The government have released 600 million for the remediation works and 1 billion for the high-risk non-cladding. The HCLG committee found that just to even address some of the high-rise buildings, it will cost in excess of 15 billion. So that funding is not enough. I think the situation on the EWS1 form has to be rectified ASAP because you are seeing people not getting any assurances from their building owners, from their landlords or from the banks. That's what's trapping a lot of people. So the government can do something now. The government can give clarity on the 18 metres and which buildings need that EWS form because your listeners, my constituents, are trapped. They are trapped in homes where they can't move, trapped in homes where they can't get a mortgage, and trapped in homes not knowing what the future holds for them.
Great work yesterday. Keep up the pleasure, Florence. Real pleasure speaking. Thank you, Labour MP for Vauxhall, Florence Ashalomi, who quizzed the Prime Minister yesterday about that. And you should know, Florence, there are so many people, as you rightly say, who feel this so keenly, either for, well, obviously for their security, their safety, but in some instances as well for their financial well-being. Again, thank you for raising that. One of your constituents on the line now, actually, Florence, if you're still listening. Mark, you're in Vauxhall. Mark, what can you tell me? Are you obviously caught in this, I imagine? Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for inviting me onto the show, or letting me go on the show. I live in Vauxhall. I live in a development with about 200 flats. It's mixed of private, shared ownership and tenancy properties. We had the ES1 test done in January, February. Earlier this year, which we failed. And we had a following fire risk assessment. And following that, the London Fire Brigade came and imposed a waking watch on our building. And the cost of that, so in excess...
Sorry, what does that mean there's fire crews there all the time or something? What does that mean?
Yeah, we have marshals here, fire marshals 24 hours a day.
Who funds that?
The leaseholders have to pay that.
Right, okay.
We have to pay that. And that's going up to £400,000 a year on top of our service charges. Now, alongside that, in order to get any of this changed or for remediation in terms of downsizing, we need to also employ fire engineers to appraise the building. And that, again, is the cost of that by leaseholders. So what we're looking at in terms of those combined figures is another sort of £100,000 on top of the service charges that we already pay.
Good grief.
So the ES1 form may be an end result in terms of getting a good sort of result in terms of being able to move on and that your property stays. Yeah. But the route to getting there is hugely expensive and unaffordable. And many people, particularly in the sort of COVID era, where many people's jobs are insecure,
absolutely,
people have lost jobs or unemployed, are absolutely devastated by this. It's not only having a sort of massively negative impact on their financial situation, driving many people into poverty, particularly young families, but it's also impacting on their psychological well-being. I get calls every day and emails throughout the week from people actually saying they just don't know where they're going to turn without this. And these costs are not going to be covered by the Building Safety Fund.
Let me ask you finally, you heard the MP's question. What did you make of the Prime Minister's response?
I thought it was weak. I have to say, I felt that he said that he understood how devastating it was. Well, I think he does understand how devastating it is. They've had 3 years to do this. There are other options, other paths that they could take in order to accelerate the process.
Do stay in touch, Mark, with what you're trying to do. I know a call's already coming in on this cladding. We will try and get to the Mark. Look after yourself. Thank you.